Okay, we're live, but we do have to let the stream breathe just for a second while we bring on our awesome Facebook community. Bear with us here just 1 second. And we're good. Welcome in, everybody, to another rapid reaction episode of the Huddle Up podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, my partner in crime. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, the NFL is on a mission to make an example of the Denver Broncos. We're seeing something unprecedented in the at least modern history of the league. The Broncos are playing an 8-2 Saints team without a quarterback, with an undrafted rookie practice squad wideout playing quarterback, and it's pretty much unfolded about the way you would expect. The defense has played pretty well. I mean, okay. They can't stop the run, which has been their problem, and then all it took was just one mistake, and the Saints capitalized. Lloyd Cushenberry botches a snap. Saints are up, or they're going to head into halftime up 14-0. Your gut reaction, then we'll dive right into the chat.
Well, my gut reaction is the game is over. I mean, they're not going to overcome 14 points. They can't even pass the ball with Kendall Hinton. Second of all, Chad, I know we didn't get to talk about this last night, but this game shouldn't be taking place right now. This is disgraceful on the NFL's behalf, not to move the game. And best believe, like I wrote on Twitter, if they had a superstar quarterback like Lamar Jackson, the NFL would have accommodated them. And making them play on 24 hours notice with no quarterbacks. Locke isn't infected. And we can go on a whole tangent about this, Chad. We will on the post-game pod. Why couldn't he play in this game? Why do they have to make every quarterback ineligible? Why do they have to screw the Broncos over to that extent? If this was the Ravens, the Packers, the Chiefs, they would have made an accommodation. This game should not be taking place right now. It is a disgrace to the NFL, and personally, it's setting football back about 50 years.
It is a disgrace. It really is. And what makes it even worse is simply how unfair. And what's up, Mike? Good to see you. One of our Super Chat superstars and MHH Mount Rushmore members. He says, this is sad. Both teams don't look great. Love you, buddy. Appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, the Saints have been very lucky that the Broncos did have a crack in the veneer. All it took was a rookie making a mistake, and they got an extra 7 points. Otherwise, the Broncos defense, for the most part, I don't want to go too overboard praising them, because they've allowed a lot of rushing yards. But yeah, Taysom Hill, he's not been good at all. I mean, he's 5 for 10 passing, 14 yards, been sacked a couple of times. But the story here, aside from the obvious with Kendall Hinton starting at quarterback and currently sitting at 0 for 7 with now a pick. Oh, man, he just got picked off going deep for Deshaun Hamilton to end the first half, Zach. So the story here, though, is yes, both teams look ugly in terms of the offense, but the Saints are the more accomplished team. Zach, it would be one thing if the Broncos had a week to get Kendall Hinton ready. They had 24 hours. Like, it's in what world the NFL thinks it was okay to do this, especially after the Broncos bent over backwards to allow the NFL to accommodate Bill Belichick and the Patriots during a similar virus crisis a few weeks back. It just boggles the mind.
Yeah, they lost the bye week for the NFL. The NFL can't even push the game back a few days. They took the Thanksgiving game off the docket for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They pushed it back twice, but they give the Broncos 24 hours notice. The Saints aren't playing that great, but they know they don't have to, Chad. I mean, all they have to do is score 7 points or any points, and they probably win this game. Their defense is pretty stout. The Broncos can't run the ball. And I know it's a really impossible spot for Pat Shurmur, but let me just say this, and not to beat a really dead horse, the play calling, if this should be the kitchen sink game for Pat Shurmur, Chad, if he should throw everything out there, and there's nothing to lose at this point anymore. You don't have a quarterback. Why are we seeing the same play calls, the same series over and over and over again? It's a Lindsey Wildcat run up the middle twice, and then a designed Hinton pass and a punt. You think there'd be a little more, a screen pass, something outside, trickery, a reverse, a double reverse pass, anything. This is the best he can do, even on short notice, is Wildcat up the middle and a punt. I don't know.
I mean, the kid can't throw. That's the thing is, I mean,
threw in college.
He doesn't have the arm strength. He barely could throw in college. I mean, he had as many rushing attempts nearly as passing attempts, and there's a reason why the school ended up saying, hey, look, dude, we got to convert you to wide receiver. We got to go a different direction at quarterback. It's like saying, I mean, imagine this. Imagine a Major League Baseball team, all right, that is told by the league, you have to play this game. In fact, no, let's make it, you have to play this series, because each game in the NFL, there's only 16 of them, that each one is monumental and important. You got to play this game, Major League Baseball, this series, I'll say, with no pitchers. You don't get to play any of your pitchers. all right, so maybe there's a guy in the outfield or at shortstop or first base who was a really dang good high school pitcher, but guess what? This is the bigs, and it's a different animal altogether. Chris Hernandez, love you, buddy. Good to see you. Appreciate you, he says. And that's the rub. Why is he going deep at all? Look, I am very loath to put any kind of onus or blame on Pat Shurmur here, just because, look, this is unfair. They shouldn't be in this position, Zach. And quick shout out here to Stu Meat with the super sticker. Love you, buddy. Appreciate the support. They just shouldn't even be in this position, Zach. And no, this was not real quick, John. I want to grab this. This fumble. This was not a Phil Lindsay's fault. That was a botched snap by Lloyd Cushenberry, and it was credited, according to NFL stats and et cetera. GS, what does it stand for? GSIS. Anyway, credited to Lloyd Cushenberry, Zach.
I understand it's short notice. I understand the impossible position that he's in, Chad. But let me ask you a question. If it was Matt LaFleur or Kyle Shanahan or another offensive mind, Cliff Kingsbury, forced to use Hinton at quarterback today, do you think we'd see a completed pass at least? Do you think we'd see some movement on offense? You still have two good running backs. You have good receivers. It took the Broncos 12 weeks to run a Hamler reverse. That's not a Hinton problem. That's not a quarterback problem. That's a Pat Shurmur problem. I'm not putting the onus on him. This game was impossible for the Broncos to win as soon as that ruling came out yesterday. But Jesus, open it up a little more. What do you have to lose? Throw everything out there. It just might work.
I think the problem is if the Broncos just go helter-skelter out there on offense and say, we got nothing to lose, and it's true that they don't have anything to lose. This game was, as soon as the NFL strong-armed the Broncos to play this, we knew what was going to happen. The problem is if you just go balls to the wall, so to speak, and helter-skelter, it signals to the defense like, all right, we're just kind of throwing in the towel. So they have to make some kind of effort at a game plan. But honestly, Zach, I don't know what they're supposed to do here. Even John Fox and Mike McCoy back in 2011, when they completely revamped the offense midstream from Kyle Orton passing scheme to Tim Tebow, at least they had a few weeks to kind of work into that. We're talking less than 24 hours, and BG here, appreciate the super. He wants to know, Zach, why wasn't this game postponed? Very simply, Drew Lock, Brett Rippon, Blake Bortles were seen after the fact during contact tracing, security footage in their meeting room in the field house to, at times, not have perfect discipline with regard to their mask wearing. And so the NFL is making an example out of the Denver Broncos because less than a week ago, the NFL sent a massive memo out to every team about the new intensive protocols. You had an all caps memorandum, and they're trying to basically, this is the scapegoat. This is the example. This is the public execution and shaming at the Denver Broncos' expense.
Yeah, the game wasn't postponed because F the Broncos. That's why. It's that they aren't relevant. They're not a winning franchise right now. Yes, they're a legacy franchise, but who cares about them? We can make them play. No one's going to care. No one's going to watch the game anyway. And to your point, Chad, about not signaling to the defense that you're waving the white flag, but how about putting them on the field after going 3 and outs, series after series after series after series? I think the defensive players would like to see some imagination on offense to show that the Broncos are trying to win this game, not just trying to run the clock out and have this charade with Hinton at quarterback.
We've seen crazier things happen. Tim Tebow beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, completing 2 of 8, I want to say, back in 2011, and that was a unicorn. But that was with Tim Tebow. All right, Tim Tebow just had a magic about him, and he was on a team at the time that was playing inspired football, and they figured out a way to get that done. Eric Decker had one big strike over the top. All it takes is that one play, and this is something I think I put it on the thumbnail to this live stream, Zach, is the Broncos are playing tough for Kendall Hinton, but they need a break. They need something to break their way, and up to this point, there's only been one break, and it was in the Saints' favor, and that's just not going to allow the Broncos any daylight to kind of work their way into this. Then I'll serve this over to you. Jonathan Chiverez jumping in. Appreciate you, bro. He says, I'm furious, Zach, about this situation the NFL has put us in. Seems like there's some blame on the Broncos. Is it just because there wasn't a mask worn? Yes, and there was a report from the Athletics' Lindsey Jones that claimed that the Broncos QBs, the 3, Lock, Rippon, and Bortles, were less than forthcoming about during their interviews, during contact tracing, about their contact and exposure to Driscoll. I think the NFL, this is just me guessing here. This is just my read on the situation, Zach. I think the NFL felt like the Broncos were trying to be deceptive, and not necessarily at a team level, but these quarterbacks were not being upfront and honest because they did greenlight the Broncos to practice Thursday after Driscoll had tested positive. The Broncos chose to cancel Friday because Deontay Spencer tested positive. And then on Saturday, everything kind of came to light and the NFL just dropped the hammer.
The Ravens have half their team on the CV list right now, and they got their game postponed or rescheduled twice. Why couldn't the Broncos get that once? Why is there a double standard in the NFL? Why does there have to be? It's so blatant and it's so ugly, and the bias against Denver once again. And like we've been saying, the let him hate hashtag and the us against the world mentality, it's not just Chad and I perpetuating this. This is what's been happening to the Broncos. It's not a theory. It's not speculation. It is fact. Whether it's the media, the NFL players, there is a legit bias against Denver, and this situation proved it. This game should not be happening right now, Chad, at all.
It's a travesty. And again, what really makes it so frustrating is the Broncos should be getting their back scratched right now by Roger Goodell and the NFL, because they not only were willing to let week 5 get rescheduled to week 6. That's a big enough ask for any NFL team due to a virus crisis on New England's part that wasn't handled great by New England and Cam Newton and the corner. What's his name? I just had a brain fart. Anyway.
Gilmore.
Thank you. Stephon Gilmore. That wasn't handled well. But the NFL didn't punish the Patriots. They ended up punishing the Broncos, robbing them of their true bye, not only rescheduling the Patriots game, but 3 other games later in the season. This is a situation where the Broncos, look, sorry, gang, it's, a room of young quarterbacks. Our bad, NFL. Look, this is a good wake-up call, but now it's time for you to scratch our back and at least reschedule this to Tuesday. Because if you reschedule this to Tuesday, like the NFL has done for other teams like Baltimore and the Bills and Tennessee at different points in this season, at least by that point, all 3 quarterbacks, if they don't test positive between now and then, would be eligible to play. Eric jumping in. Appreciate that super chat, my friend. He says, hey, guys, longtime listener, first-time contributor. Love the show. Appreciate you, Doug. He says, this game is an absolute disgrace, but Drew Lock did break the NFL's rules, and Vic Fangio allowed it to happen. But, guys, let me tell you, let me explain to you the difference here in terms of the rules. I don't have my trusty MHH mask, but it's like this, okay? I'll grab this doggy blanket. My dog likes to kick it next to me, all right? It's like this. This is normal, all right? And then, like, you're 6, 7, 8, 9 feet away from your guy, and you kind of go like this for a second. Catch your breath, put it back on. That is what I understand is what happened, and they saw it on film. But because it wasn't perfect mask, discipline, and obedience, NFL pulled their card.
Who doesn't do that, though? I mean, when I'm in a grocery store and I can yank my mask down for a little bit for a few, it doesn't mean I'm not wearing it. It doesn't mean I'm being irresponsible or flouting the rules. I think the NFL is punishing Denver for what they've gone through. I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday, Chad. They did a really good job, the Broncos, instituting the protocols and the CV plan before the season, but their best player got it. Their head coach didn't wear a mask, didn't want to wear a mask. Their defensive coordinator got it. Kareem Jackson got it. Slowly but surely, the Broncos system has been infiltrated by the virus. And I think the NFL is saying, okay, enough's enough. And I have to wonder too, Chad, this is pure tinfoil hat speculation. How much of this, coinciding with last week's news that the NFL is a little peeved at the Broncos for their ownership situation, I wonder if they had an owner in the picture, would they still be getting punished? If Pat Bowlen, God rest his soul, was still among us, would Goodell be screwing the Broncos over? I don't think so.
George Vandermark, a longtime superstar supporter of this podcast and MHH. And just real quick, a serious note, George is battling something serious. Those of you out there in Broncos country, this is a guy that needs everyone's love and support and your prayers, positive thoughts, positive vibes. The universe, we need to will the universe and God Almighty to help this cat out. He's going through a tough patch. I don't want to spill the beans on his personal situation, but he could use your prayers right now. He says, hey, this is BS not to move the game, but I need your size, Zach, for a number 72 jersey. Eat your crow. So, yeah, we'll talk more about Garrett Bolzak after in the Gut Reaction podcast, where we have a full hour plus to really get into things. But real quick, Garrett Bolzak.
Yes. Okay. So $17 million a year. It wasn't the most horrible contract. I like that the Broncos locked up one of their own guys, sent a good message, but he comes out today, Chad, and he's not the cause of why they're losing today, but he comes out and commits a holding penalty. We haven't seen that from him much this season, and this is my only concern with paying Garrett Bowles. And like Chad said, we'll talk more about this in the next pod. My only concern was right after the ink is dry. Will his positive play keep up? The Broncos erased 3 years of ineptitude with 10 games of elite play, gave him $17 million a year. I want him to work out. This is why I would have franchise tagged him, though, just in case, protect myself from his play falling off again.
What's up, Tom? Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate the super chat. Oh, boy. Indeed. Yeah, we'll get way more into Garrett Bowles here at the end of this game. But Sharon, appreciate that super chat jumping in, grind staff to say, oh, for the days of Aqib Talib would make an interception, return it for a touchdown. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice, but again, this is what I'm saying, Zach, is the only hope the Broncos had of winning this game with the NFL strong arming them to play was for the defense to play a perfect game, for the offense to play a perfect game, and for at least one big break to go Denver's way. So far, there's been only one break, and it's gone New Orleans' way. Two of them, actually, because Alexander Johnson forced a fumble, and the Saints were able to scoop it up. Broncos didn't. And then, of course, the Cushenberry botch snap.
Yeah, it's just, this was an uphill battle for the Broncos, even with Drew Lock. We talked about this on Thursday's podcast. It's going to take a good effort, not just on defense containing Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, but on offense, getting past that really aggressive, really stout, disciplined Saints defense. Now starting Kendall Hinton at quarterback, not having literally any quarterbacks, it's an impossible ask. I like the Broncos didn't forfeit, Chad. They have more integrity and pride than that, but this was an impossible situation for the Broncos to win.
Josh Alstrom wants to know, appreciate the super, by the way, my friend, longtime listener of this podcast. He says the inside defensive line, soft versus the run since no Shelby and no Mike Purcell. That's just, it's just insult to injury, right? You're just throwing gasoline on what is already a conflagration. The Broncos, yet again, are going the fourth straight game without even one of their day one starters on the defensive line. And for all that Draymond Jones and DeMarcus Walker bring to the table as pass rushers inside, they leave a lot wanting with regard to stopping the run. And the Saints are one of the better rushing offenses in the league. Guys, they are putting it to the Broncos on the ground. The first two possessions, Denver was able to kind of hang in there and got a couple of key sacks on third down. But listen, the Saints, Zach, through 2 quarters of play, have 123 total yards, 98 of which, Zach, are rushing yards. So yes, it sucks that the defensive line isn't able to stop the run completely, but they don't have even one of their day one starters. Then the NFL expects them to play the Saints, a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. With this wide receiver playing quarterback, it's a freaking joke, dude. Like, I woke up this morning feeling like I was in the Upside Down, dude, from Stranger Things. Is it Stranger Things? Yeah. Like, I'm like, this is like Upside Down world. I'm in Willy Wonka right now. Like, this isn't real.
Yeah, I thought I was dreaming, and I woke up today. I'm like, they're really making the Broncos play without any quarterback. It's funny to me. But, the Broncos are shorthanded, but let's not forget New Orleans is missing the entire left side of their offensive line. Their left tackle and left guard are both out for today's game. Those are both really good players. The Saints are just a better team off the line of scrimmage today. Though, Chad, Draymond Jones and DeMarcus Walker look great in pass rushing situations. Maybe not against the run, but DeMarcus Walker is quietly having a very solid season.
Kenneth Booker jumping in. Good to see you, my friend. And guys, let us know when the game kicks back off. It might already be back on. Let me check NFL GSIS real quick to confirm. Looks like they are. No, it's still halftime. But let's grab this from Kenneth. Good to see you, dog. And by the way, you've got a mug coming your way. I don't know if it's shipped yet. Actually, I think it did ship, but you should be seeing it probably next week. He says, was there any consideration of refusing to play? I'm sure there was, to be honest with you. I'm sure the Broncos considered just forfeiting, but it's just not in the nature of John Elway or Vic Fangio to forfeit. Again, each one of these games, there's only 16. Each one is precious and factors in greatly into the formula, the equation that ultimately dictates the playoff gauntlet. And the Broncos, it's just not in John Elway's nature to throw in the towel. Now, we don't know, but maybe, Zach, the NFL said, all right, we'll let you, we'll reschedule, but you're going to have to lose a 4th or 5th round pick for the privilege. Is that something you're willing to do? Maybe that happened, and Elway said, up yours, we're going to play the game. I don't know that happened, but it wouldn't surprise me if something like that, it was either that, forfeit, or play it with this situation. And they tried to actually get approval for 2 of their offensive quality control coaches to be signed as game day quarterbacks. They wanted Rob Calabrese, who ran practice yesterday, to freaking play. Dude, this is ridiculous. The NFL should be ashamed of itself. It's embarrassing. And yes, the Broncos are at fault for not perfectly obeying the mask protocols with regard to social distancing and whatnot. The NFL is embarrassing itself. Roger Goodell be clowning himself. And John, good to see you, my friend. One of our longtime listeners, he says, it's not surprising that the NFL is screwing us over.
It's literally unreal. It's hard to even imagine this exists in a real life world. But this is also 2020, chat, where literally anything can happen. And It's the way the NFL put the Broncos in the situation today, and what more could you do?
It's just so on its face, it's unfair. We'll get more into this in the gut reaction. On its face, it's unfair in and of itself, Zach. But the fact that the Broncos bent over backwards to their own hurt in order to accommodate the Patriots and the NFL a month and a half ago, only to get done like this by Goodell and the NFL front office, to me is egregious. It's unconscionable. Again, it's embarrassing. The league itself, led by Roger Goodell, has beclowned itself. That this is a laughing stock. John Mortensen, good to see you. No matter who did what, every team has broken protocol rules. We should not be playing this game.
It's true. And, I want to tack on to your previous point, Chad, about John Elway, and that's not his style. It's also not Pat Bowlen's style to forfeit. And with him in the picture, they're still keeping in mind the Pat Bowlen standard, how he would want to run the team, what he would do in these situations. He wouldn't have forfeited. He would have brought hell and high water on the NFL for making them play in this game. But I feel like if Pat Bowlen was still around, the NFL will be more accommodating. This is ridiculous, Chad, to the nth degree. But that's what happens when you have an ownership void at the top. Who is the NFL going to come after? Who is the NFL going to talk to mediate? It's not going to be Elway.
All right, guys, two more, and then we're going to dip out because the game is back on. Mohammed, good to see you, my friend. This is our personally paid male model for MHH swag, as you can see. He's rocking the trucker hat like yours truly and the MHH State of Being hoodie. Good to see you, dog. He says, I have no respect for the NFL. And at this point, we don't blame you. This is not a situation or a decision you can respect. This is, again, the Broncos, 3 young quarterbacks were at fault for not perfectly honoring and obeying the mask protocols. And it's unfortunate that it came so shortly after the NFL sent out the memo on the intensive protocols, buckling down on the pandemic. That's why the NFL is making an example of the Broncos, Zach, but it doesn't make it right, especially in light of the early season. So Lawrence Rivera, last one, then we'll dip out. It's still close, though, even though they are playoff bound. Yeah, the Saints are a playoff caliber team, even without Drew Brees, just because there's so much talent, Zach. But this is a wall the Broncos aren't going to be able to overcome. 14 points. Last one. Until that last TD by Hill, I was getting a lot of Tim Tebow game vibes. I have to say this feeling is up there with the firing of Mike Shanahan. I am now a Roger Goodell hater for consistency.
You know what? The only good thing he's done since becoming commissioner is the rookie wage scale. Aside from that, he has made the NFL worse and worse and worse every single year. And he gets the credit for the popularity. The popularity would have been there even if Mike Cat was commissioner of the NFL. It's a popular sport. But what he's done, the way he's handled this, Chad, is ridiculous. And I think this is among the many feathers in his cap, and not the positive way. I think this is the biggest one, making the Broncos play in this game a legacy-proud franchise. It's disgraceful. No other word for it.
And guess what? By the way, we're not alone in this. I mean, there's media and players and fans from across the NFL, all right, the entire landscape saying, this ain't right. The Broncos shouldn't be playing this game. Now, it'd be one thing if the NFL had not bent the rules and been malleable to other situations, but to suddenly change course, week 12, and say, no, this is the game in which we're going to actually force a team to play. And it's the apocalypse, Zach. It's literally the worst possible fear. That's the sum of all fears for each and every team in the league. When this whole pandemic thing started, what if we have an outbreak at the quarterback position? You and I took questions on this podcast. What will the Broncos do? It is the sum of all fears. And the NFL, instead of pivoting, instead of saying, all right, we're going to roll with the punches here, we'll reschedule this, or maybe we'll create a week 18 for the Broncos Saints. No. We're making an example. It's public humiliation. It's public execution of John Elway, Joe Ellis, Vic Fangio, Drew Lock, and the whole Denver Broncos franchise. And Pat Bowlen, trust is rolling over in his grave.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. We did talk about that, a QB quarantine room or a special list for quarterbacks, or like a bubble for quarterbacks so they stay safe. I can't believe it actually came to fruition where the Broncos were ruled ineligible. Their entire quarterback room was ruled ineligible to play in this game 24 hours in advance. This is a coup, Chad, completely.
I was literally, last thing, kicking it with my brother when this happened, when the news broke. My phone buzzed. All Broncos quarterbacks ruled out of week 12 versus Saints. This is less than 24 hours from the kick. And my mind, I just laughed. I'm like, oh, whatever, dude. That's crazy. But yeah, this will get rescheduled. I sit down, I go fire up my laptop, start getting some news out on this, talking to you, Zach, because at the same time, Garrett Bowles news had just broke. We're trying to get to the bottom of this, and all of the signs are NFL's making the Broncos play without quarterbacks. Like, it's unbelievable. Guys, the game's back on. We'll see how this thing turns out, but we want you to be back here in the saddle with us immediately following the game for the gut reaction. It'll be within 5 to 10 minutes of the final gun. Zach and I will come back, and we'll break down the whole thing. We won't be as under the gun time-wise. So, Zach, we have no idea how it's going to unfold, but it's probably going to continue along the same lines that the first half was.
I think the only thing I can say with certainty, because it's going to be a wild second half in a really unique NFL game, I don't see the Broncos really coming back unless they force a turnover on defense. Let's have a punt return or kick return touchdown, which we all know isn't happening. 14 points in this situation might as well be 40 points. Hopefully, though, they can make some plays. Hopefully, we can see some creativity on offense. And at least at the bare minimum, the silver lining to all this, Chad, is that Phillip Lindsay was going to be fed 7 style. Just force-fed gluttony. That's what I want from him. Run him until the wheels fall off. Then for one way or the other whether he can be the guy. I want to see at least competitive fight in the second half.
All right, guys. We'll see you at the end of this game for the gut reaction. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you like to listen. We'll be here live. For Zack Kelberman, I'm Chad Jensen. We'll see you in a little over an hour.